All right, welcome back, everybody, to another great episode of AI plus Data Mastery. Quick thanks to our sponsors, Data Accelerator and Evolve with AI. We appreciate you helping us keep the lights on. I'm the host, Jason Renno, and I'm excited today. Today, Isaiah Dominguez, who's the Director of Marketing at Wibotic. Basically, Wibotic is a company that is building the charging infrastructure behind the robotics boom. I mean, in essence, they're making, which it's funny because the downtime of robotics, which is still little, but they are still so small, but they still have to charge. They're literally making it optional now. So they're, in essence, they're doing wireless power for autonomous robotics. So if robotics are the workforce, they are the fuel line that keeps them running as often and as efficiently as possible. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Isaiah. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jason.
So I know obviously charging is the captain obvious in terms of the problem that's being solved or the problem that Wibotic is solving within the marketplace. But like, can you go into a little bit more detail in terms of, because I'm looking at your website from the pre-show, it's much more than just plug and play. Like you guys are literally putting chargers on like robots and driving it to remote places and charging, and it's way more than just charging. Can you explain a little? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we like to kind of describe ourselves as building the power infrastructure for battery applications. So battery powered applications when it comes to, any kind of vehicle that requires a battery or any kind of robot that requires a battery to get from point A to point B or to accomplish any kind of task. We want to build the infrastructure around your solution in order to be able to eliminate the downtime and increase ROI and productivity. Because let's face it, investment in robotics is a big investment, right? You're putting a lot of cash up front, and you want to make sure that you're getting the optimal ROI on that. And you can't do that if your robots have to be down for 2, 3, 4 hours just to reboot their battery, or if you have to employ somebody, a physical human, which eliminates the robotics need in general again. But if you have to employ a physical human to go in and swap the batteries out and make sure that they're always topped up and whatnot. So we're building infrastructure in order to implement not just charging like docks and stations and whatnot, but more optimal charging pathways, making sure that your batteries are staying within a specific threshold so that they have extended battery life, so you're spending less money on that. And then also, implementing the software piece where they're understanding, when I go, robots are understanding, when I accomplish task A to task B, there's a downtime between those two where I can get a charge off of this dock and, create a one-to-many infrastructure so that you don't have to have one-to-one docks to um, robotics or to robots. You can have a few stations where robots can sip power off of and continuously go throughout the day.
So when you say infrastructure, you're not just like, hey, let's spread out some charging stations across the factory floor so they can kind of plug in anywhere. It's more of like a
Mhm.
smart structure. So it's like, yeah, you're I'm assuming utilizing AI and different technologies, so that way what like you're saying, the robot knows where they're at on the floor, knows, hey, I can charge here to go. That's pretty incredible. So it's not just about charging, but it's maximizing the efficiencies, monitoring battery life. I mean, I'm just thinking because it's like the normal person, you don't even think how much goes into just a task like keeping those robots charged, but there's a lot that goes into it. Or I guess a lot of leakage in a sense of revenue or just wasted ad spend
Mhm.
could completely go out the door if it's not set up correctly, right?
Yeah, it's an unseen friction point. I think because we all have to deal
I
with
like that. I like that
batteries.
term. I'm sorry. I'm going to steal that
No,
unseen friction point. I'm writing that one
yeah,
down.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of I think we have to deal with so many different types of batteries throughout our day that we don't necessarily think of. You think you deal with your computer, your laptop battery, you deal with your phone battery, you deal with, and the worst possible thing is when your phone's on 20% and you have a really important like task that you have to accomplish, and now you have to go find a charger to be able to plug it into the wall. And the best invention that I think Apple or whatever your phone manufacturer is the fast charging, where it hits you with a charge up to 80% as quickly as possible and then tapers down. We wanted to emulate that with your robotics as well too. So your battery is within the threshold of like 20 to 80% is where it wants to live, right? That's where its optimal lifespan is. And we wanted to make sure that robots had the capacity to be able to stay within that optimal range. And if that's like a hardware solution, then that's a hardware solution, right? It's making sure that your robots don't have to remove themselves from the workflow, which is, something that people don't anticipate when they implement a robotics or an automation solution. They think, oh, my robot, because it's not a human, can just cycle this workflow 24/7 without any kind of interruption. But you have interruptions like battery power or downtime in that case. And if it takes, 2 to 4 hours to charge your battery to full capacity, that's 2 to 4 hours your robot's not working. So you either need to, one, buy another robot to replace that robot when it comes out of the workflow, or you need to just accept the fact that you're going to have a downtime where that you're going to have less productivity through that workflow. And I don't think a lot of people. It's one of those things where it's not an anticipated friction point, I guess you could say. It's unseen at that point because people don't think it's not the sexiest thing in the world.
You just don't know what you don't know, and
Yes.
probably the guy selling you the robot didn't mention that. It's
Right.
there's that too. Now, do you, just because I saw this on your website, and I know building infrastructure and things of that nature, but do you guys also incorporate in the custom solutions like remote charging? And this is a one-off question, but like a drone, like flying in a drone to charge, or a remote autonomous vehicle, with a battery pack that can charge something remotely, that type of stuff as well?
So a lot of our remote applications or our outdoor applications that we have are robots that are existing in places where humans just either physically can't go or shouldn't go. So dangerous environments like nuclear reactors or like desolate wilderness or something like that.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah. Preventing the need for putting a life at risk, basically, or injury, or, that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's kind of the bigger, it's one of the puzzle pieces to true autonomy, right? You have the robot who's able to go and accomplish the task, and now you have the power infrastructure that allows it to do that task without any human intervention whatsoever. And then, there's obviously a need for probably data transfer. And so the robot needs the capacity to be able to transfer whatever data it's trying to collect to, remotely, which you have another piece. So we're certainly a piece of the puzzle that creates a truly autonomous solution. And I think it's, hardware and charging and whatnot is again, like we were saying, not the sexiest part of the autonomous solution, but it's a key component, right? It's a key component to be able to accomplish these tasks without any need for human intervention, and without the need to, in the case of, let's say, a nuclear reactor, which we're recently started working on with a humanoid. We're sending humanoids or a humanoid into a nuclear reactor. That robot can't come back out because of the radiation. It goes in and it will never come out of that thing. It will never leave. So there's no capacity to be able to give it a charge, to give it a battery, to swap the batteries out. You either have to teach that robot how to swap its own batteries and charge its own batteries, or you have to give it a charging station to be able to charge at. Much easier to have a robot walk up to a charging station and stand there and charge idly than it is to map out its functionality to be able to pull a battery out and put a battery in and place a battery on a contact charger and then walk away from that.
Right?
Right. And if that robot dies, your investment now dies because you can't pull it out, right? That's the case with a lot of these like remote applications or these dangerous applications that I think that is where robotics is really going to win in the industry is, there are things that either humans are doing now that they shouldn't be because they're so dangerous, or that humans just physically can't do at this point in time. And so we're enabling the autonomy for robotics to be able to take over those tasks.
Yeah, exactly. And even if there still needs to be some sort of human interaction, to oversee or, heck, even steer the robots in some cases, but just the fact that you can get power to a location and prevent the need to risk injury and life and things like that. I mean, all of that is is just huge. And like you downplay like, hey, it's this isn't the sexiest part of the business, but
Sure.
I'll tell you right now, there's nothing unsexier than seeing whatever device you're trying to use go to red and less than
That's
10%. Like that has got
yeah.
to be the worst feeling in the world. And can you? I
Yes.
mean, and I'm joking around holding my cell phone, but can you imagine using like some sort of major device that and I relate to or thinking about another gentleman, Chad, who was on the show a while back, where he does on-site testing, like soil testing. So rather than
Hmm.
gather it, send it to a lab, and so on and so forth, he now does what used to take 20 days in 2 hours. So now I'm
Yeah.
thinking in your case, you have remote locations, whether somebody's there, somebody's not there, but equipment is costing time, energy, money.
Hmm.
Everything just costs money. So if somebody's out of power, somebody can't do their job, or something can't do their job, it's costing a fortune, or potentially could cost a fortune in downtime that you're now preventing.
Yeah.
It's not just obviously everything runs on power, but then the cost of the downtime when something doesn't have power
Yeah.
equally adds up, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And this is also exemplified in one of our more recent product launches is an underwater charging system. So
Oh,
subs for like little unmanned subs are going out and surveying, ocean floor, kelp forests, etc. The way that people typically do that is they drive a ship out, they drop the sub, it does its surveying, they pull it out of the water, add more fuel or they add more charge, and they transfer all of the data out of whatever it did, and then they put it back in the water and they send it back out, and it's this long process where you
yeah,
have to have.
and how, I'm just thinking how much of a battery is wasted going up and down.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we have a system where, a little unmanned sub can go down into the water, go out, do its inspection, come back, charge, transfer its data, leave, and it doesn't have to be pulled in and out of the water numerous times. And it's, fully enclosed, IP rated, waterproof, like a system. And it's just going to increase the efficiency of their capacity to be able to survey the ocean floor and kelp forests and whatever else it may be. I mean, it could even come down to, let's say like an oil rig or something like that. You're inspecting the infrastructure on the bottom of an oil rig, and you can send a robot out to inspect every 30 minutes, every hour, every 2 hours, whatever you feel is necessary. And just prevents the need for it to like, okay, now you have to have somebody launch the sub, and now you have to have somebody pull it out, and now you have to launch the sub again, and
Well,
whatnot. So,
it's so funny that you say that. We were I think she's going to be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks, but their whole thing was these arms, these big robotic
mhm.
arms that pull the subs or pull the autonomous vehicles in and out of the water of these
Yeah.
ships. And yeah, their whole thing was just about saving time and efficiency and less human contact, pulling these things
Hmm.
in and out. But what you're
Yep.
saying is even a step further is, you have to pull them out less times, and the less times you pull them out, the less
Yeah.
times things break, and it's just all
Yeah.
that stuff compiles. The more times you have to use things. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. Now, was there
Yeah.
would it even get to the point where you would send another sub down to charge the one down there, or that wouldn't make sense because now you're still kind of going back and forth, or send a smaller sub with just like a big battery pack, or
You could certainly add a payload of a power payload to an additional vehicle or additional sub as
now
long
you
as it
have two
had the.
subs in the water, and I guess maybe
Yeah, I mean, as long as you had the infrastructure to be able to mount that or something like that,
I'm sure
as long
somebody
as you had
above
the
my pay
hardware.
grade at your company thought of that and realized that what you did was a better option. So,
Sure. Well, I mean, you never know. It's a similar, I guess, application to when you design something for space, let's say. So like in space, you can't like plug into a 120-volt outlet, right? Like you can't plug a charger into a 120-volt outlet in space. And so when we design for applications like space rovers, like the lunar rovers that we've done in the past, um, you have to find ways to create mobile power banks for these rovers to be able to pull. So whether that's, these power banks are absorbing solar and they're just being established across a RIT pathway, so that these rovers can, go and find a charge and then go off and do their survey and then come back and find a charge and whatnot. It's the application of like there are people way smarter than me tackling these problems, and there are people, anticipating exactly what you're saying here, where it's like, hey, we don't have the capacity to be able to plug into a wall here. How do we get more power out to these people or to these applications as well too?
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. So now let's flip this here a little bit. And you, as the director of marketing, how
Sure.
obviously this is a phenomenal product. I mean, we can probably talk about this for a while, just all the different applications and scenarios and things like that. But how do
Hmm.
you, well, one, who is your primary focus? Who is your primary target, market right now that you're going after marketing to, trying to,
Hmm.
generate business from? And then from there, how are you going about, trade shows, conferences, emails, cold calling? What are you doing to get in front of your target market and establish relationships?
Sure. Right now, the markets that we're looking at, typically or pretty much, we're focused on three verticals. The first one being warehousing and logistics. That's your AMRs, your AGVs, your ASRS, any type of system that's being used for fulfillment. And it's a huge marketplace. There are Amazon and all of the big warehousing fulfillment centers in the entirety of the world. So that's a huge market to be able to tackle. And they're constantly, if they don't have their own robotics department, they're licensing out robotics from someone else, right? So they're looking for efficiencies in every aspect of their logistics and their supply chain. So that's one of our main verticals. The other vertical is floor scrubbers, which is something that I think was more of a surprise in our sales department than than anything else, because again, we were talking about unseen friction points earlier. This floor scrubbers are an unseen friction point for a lot of big box retailers, and not just big box retailers, but any warehousing or store that you go to that uses a floor scrubber, right? And I think what we didn't anticipate is that people are having so many issues with, you know, the cost of the batteries to replace them, and the fact that nobody knows if you've plugged this in yet or not, and that it requires a human to plug it in every single time. And so you're introducing human error into, you know, oh, so and so who closed last night didn't plug in the floor
Yeah,
scrubber, and now it's the morning and we have to do our morning cleanup checklist. And the floor scrubber's dead. So now we have to wait for it to charge for 2 hours, and it killed the battery. Oh, now we have to go and buy a new battery and get it replaced. And now we can't scrub our floors for 3 days until it gets to us, etc. Um, so that's another big market that we didn't anticipate, but are focusing on right now. And then the third one is the medical industry. So efficiency within the medical industry. If you've ever been in a hospital, there you know that there are medical carts everywhere,
I was
and
just
that
thinking those
they
parts that the nurses and everybody push around, right?
and anybody who's been in a hospital room knows that there's not very much room inside of those rooms, and they have to bring the clunky cart in, and they have to find the open outlet, and they have to unwind the cord, and they have to plug it in, and then they have to unplug it and unwind it and take it to a different room. And it's a clunky process, right? And so what our target is there is the infrastructure of hospitals. If we can build wireless charging into hospital systems, then carts can just be pushed up against a wall or up against a rail, or they can be multi-use. They could be support rails that also have a charge or a charger inside of them. And so you just push a cart up against a rail and it's charging instantly. And then you don't have to worry about, oh, did somebody plug this workstation in? Is this ultrasound charged up? Is this etc? So those are our three markets. Right now, the second part of your question was, what is our approach? How do we access those markets? Um, it is, I would say, a very traditional mix of doing trade shows, doing paid advertising, doing social, and then doing paid social as well, and then just native content creation on our own website and our own platform. So leveraging our partnerships with other people to create case studies or white papers and whatnot. Um, and then additionally, email marketing as well, and partnerships like this, where we're able to go on other shows and pay for publication on other shows and whatnot. So it's a lot to handle, especially because we're a small company. We're 30 to 40 employees, and we've been around for 10 years, and our budget isn't the same budget that like a huge, let's say like a Boston Dynamics marketing budget or something else,
Of
like
course
a
not.
huge marketing budget. And so we have to find ways that we can win within our, bandwidth, so that we're not, stretching everybody so thin that they're working on nights and weekends and have no time to do anything else with their life. But also that we can afford to do within the budget that we have for the size of our company.
Yeah, of course. What would you say has been, besides emailing and calling and the trade shows and conferences,
Mhm.
what has been the most successful?
I mean, trade shows obviously are one of the biggest wins for us, because it's every mover and shaker is in one place at one time, and we have the capacity to send out our team onto the floor, and also intake leads. So I would say, if we're getting marketing qualified leads, trade shows have been kind of the bell cow for us. Yeah, you could say, just because high concentration of highly qualified buyers who are interested in your product, and you can pitch them right then and there. That's kind of been, the bell cow for what we're doing here as far as marketing. Um, Social media, I think, is an undervalued aspect in robotics in general. And I think in hardware teams, people who sell like hardware products, kind of like us, there's a lot of copy paste type of companies who are not promoting themselves, I think, optimally on social media, and aren't creating a brand. They're more selling you a product every single time they're posting on social media. And
They're not adding any value.
yes, exactly. And I think that it's oft overlooked because it is, social media and it's free. And I think what people take for granted is that it is free. And because of that, you should be leveraging it the most you possibly can, especially when you're a small budget company. So
Yeah.
those are, I think, two things that we value pretty highly.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I agree, and especially in the B2B space, I think
Hmm.
social media is one of those, and it's just with anything, a lot of people in your shoes, they'll get caught up on the numbers. Like, oh, well, we don't have
Yeah.
10,000 followers. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not looking for 1,000 clients either. You're going
No.
after, yeah, exactly. All you need is if you're just looking for one or two clients from social media and you have 400 or 500 clients or 400 or 500 followers, but they're the right followers and they're engaged with your
Mhm.
content and you can maybe get one or two deals a year out of it, that's a huge win, right? But people
Totally.
get caught up on, oh, I only have 500 followers because everybody else on their social media feed has millions of followers. But it's like, look,
Shit.
you don't need that quality over quantity, and
Yeah.
you can still do that with social media as well.
Yeah, I always think about I forget the specifics of the saying, but it's, if you have 1,000 clients buying $100 product from you, you're making $1 million or $100,000. And if you have 10,000 clients buying a $100 product from you, then it just grows exponentially. And if you look at our again, our audience is pretty small. It's 4,500 followers on LinkedIn, and then something like 500 on X. But if you look at that audience, we're not selling $100 product. We're not selling $1,000 product either.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
most of these people, if they're buying in bulk. They're buying multiples, and we don't need to sell to 4,500 people. We just need a handful of them to outfit their robotic systems and whatnot. And if you think about the other thing, I guess, that you could, or context that you could place on it, is if you put 4,500 people in one room, that's a lot of people. Like that's a lot of eyes. That's a lot of ears. That's a lot of word of mouth that you can create off of 4,500 people. I think you're absolutely right. There's a vanity metric behind, you know, I have 100,000 followers or I have a million followers or something like that. But it's not so much how many people, it's the quality of the audience that you have as well, because you don't want to have a million followers of people who, one, don't care about your product, or two, don't care about your brand, because you're
Yeah,
just
no
not
one
going
can
to you're not
complete
going to
weight.
convert. You're not going to convert at that point. It's just, again, vanity metrics. So
Yes, and that is vanity metrics is a big problem. But yeah,
Mm.
that's exactly it. And that's what
Yeah,
I personally love about the B2B space is because you can really drill down and focus on quality over quantity and still
yeah,
deliver high results and a high impact because
yeah,
literally one deal, you find one extra deal, prevent one extra deal from slipping through the cracks, and that
yeah,
could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars over the lifetime of the client.
yeah,
Versus those
exactly.
$100 B2C type of products.
Hmm.
Shoot, I was just going to ask you a question. Now I'm brain farting here for a quick second.
No
uh,
worries.
Okay, so trade shows and conferences, do you typically sponsor them? Like have a booth with like a demo with, like a demo product there? Or is it more of you pay to attend and then, the sales team kind of walks the floor and, or a
We
combination of
do.
both?
It's both at this point.
Okay.
I think really when you're kind of when you're in the market space that we're in and you're experimenting with, well, where could we possibly make sales, and what industries are we overlooking? You want to make an initial investment that's not scary. And trade shows, as anybody who's ever done trade shows knows, can get really expensive. I mean, the cost of carpet is like $5,000 for an entire week of a trade show, which
Yeah,
is,
and for like a 10 foot by 10 foot space.
right. Right. You never knew carpet could cost so much until you were temporary carpet that you don't get to keep could cost so much until you're doing trade shows. But we want to make an investment on potential market spaces that we want to break into. But we don't want it to be a terrifying investment. So sending somebody there with a badge, or sending a team there with a badge to just walk the floor and see what's going on, gauge the quality of prospects that are there, gauge who is showing up and who is presenting and whatnot, and then rolling that into whatever your next year planning is going to end up being. Saying, okay, let's look at all of the events that we did this year and what their productivity was for us as well, or what their ROI was for us as well. And then, taking a look into the future, like, does this have potential for next year? Should we present with a small booth? Should we present with a big booth? And then obviously having a presence at like the major players. So like the Modexes and the Automates and the Promats and the Manifests, these huge, not CES, but, other, big
Yeah, the major
tech,
ones.
software, robotics. Having a presence there, I think, is beneficial, even if you're not going to get the same like ROI that you would from like a smaller show. So like a smaller show, you may have more potential to be able to talk one-on-one for longer with potential buyers. With these huge shows, I think that there's still value in attendance there, because you play among the big players, right? It's
Still
the
have to
Super
be seen,
Bowl.
right?
Yes, yeah, it's the Super Bowl ad of the warehousing and logistics world, right? Like, you don't you people spend big money on a Super Bowl ad because they know that the ability to be seen is more valuable than like the dollar spend that you're going to spend on it, right? Like the brand awareness is going to be more valuable than the money that you end up spending on it. So I think having a presence at these bigger shows is certainly something that we prioritize as well too. And in fact, we'll be at Modex in April this year as well with a 10 by 20 booth, which I think when you're doing um, physical booth locations, and when you're doing physical exhibiting, you need to approach that with a plan as well too. Otherwise, you're going to end up wasting money, right? Like otherwise, you're going to end up with four people standing in a booth twiddling their thumbs, not making any kind of, headway as far as prospecting. So you need to have a plan of, who's going to be in the booth, how are you going to be outreaching people who are walking by, how are you going to how are you going to lay the framework before the booth is even set up, with your email campaign, with your social campaign, with your publishing sponsorships and whatnot, so that you're generating interest before you even get there. And then, like, who is going to be walking the floor at what points in time? Who's going to be prospecting actively outbound at what points in time, so that you have a plan of attack. You're maximizing your time there, and then you're also making it beneficial to even have spent that money in the first place.
Yeah, you definitely have to go into it with a plan of attack, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
winging it, then you're doomed.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, perfect. And then also you mentioned email. Just can you touch on that? Is that, is just kind of a cold email outreach? Do you, pull lists from a Zoom or Apollo and upload it and,
Mhm.
send out some emails and see what happens? Or how do you approach
We
email
do
marketing?
We do both. So we do cold outbound email marketing, and then we also do warmed lists as well too. So the lists that we warm are contacts that we're getting from form fills, or something that we're getting from trade shows, or something that we're getting from social,
Somebody that
or
raised their hand at some point just haven't converted yet.
Yes, exactly. They're giving you a positive sales signal, right? They're saying, "Hey, I'm interested in your company. I'm interested in your product. I'm interested in your brand." That's what we call like a warm list that we would constantly market to, and we send out emails weekly, or yeah, and we have newsletters that go out once a month and
Nice.
whatnot, to make sure that we're constantly in your inbox, and that you're thinking about us as well too. And just creating more touch points, right? So with our warmed email lists, it's just creating more touch points, creating more interest, and answering whatever questions that we can from people who might be curious about what we provide, but not fully committal to have a sit down meeting with one of our sales reps yet.
Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
especially in your case, there's got to be a form of education process. They might not even know
yeah,
they need. They're like, hey, well, my robots are working fine. They don't
yeah,
realize that, hey, that 27% downtime is costing me X and this and that. So you might
hmm,
have to send them a few emails, run a few ads to them, do something to educate them, get in front of them before it's like, hey,
yeah,
well, Jesus, maybe that is costing me money, and that
yeah,
and that could be a month or two of emails and ads before they have that aha moment. But you just
yeah,
you have to keep staying in front of them
yep.
until they do, right?
Yeah, 100%. I always talk about it as paddle in surfing nomenclature, where you have to paddle into the wave, right? Like the wave, you're not just going to sit there and the wave's going to pick you up and take you into the beach, right? You have to match the speed of the wave, and you have to paddle into it. And so what we're doing with our warmed list is paddling into the wave, right? So whenever that wave comes, we'll be ready for it, and you'll be ready for it as well too, as a prospective customer, right?
I like that analogy. That's
Yeah.
I've never heard that one, especially from a sales point. But I mean, it makes perfect sense. I love it. I might have to
Yeah,
steal that one too. Um,
sure.
well, perfect. Well, gosh, we're already past the 30-minute mark here. This is,
Yeah,
I guess, time flies when you're having fun, and it's been a,
sure.
great. I love everything that in terms of what the company's doing, how it's really addressing what you don't even realize is a huge issue, but is a
Yeah,
huge issue, that most people don't even realize that is there, because again, all of this stuff is just happening in the background, and most, the normal, I guess, the day-to-day lives of most people, so to speak.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
what about, real quick, before we wrap up, uh, what about the future? I mean, there's now voice AI and AI emails and AI this and AI that, but there's definitely a human touch involved in the acquisition process. Do you see AI and some of these new tools being able to help, with the client acquisition process? Do you think they can just take over and close deals for you? Do they think they can help open deals and then the human has to come in? Like, where do you see the future of
Sure.
this?
Um, I think so. AI is one of those things where it allows small teams like us to be able to operate at a higher and more efficient level without having to onboard a ton of additional staff, which is expensive as well too, right? Like, it's able to take over a lot of content mapping and campaign build outs, and stuff that just traditionally requires thinking time and bandwidth, something that you would hire, an entry level employee to be able to do, and that you would train an entry level employee to be able to do. And we just don't have the budget to run a 10, 15 person marketing team. And so, AI allows us to be able to, build out campaigns and create campaigns and create content and generate, cold outbound outreach in a way that we wouldn't be able to if it was just us, right? So it certainly allows small teams to be able to operate at the competitive level with larger marketing teams as well. And I think in the future, it's going to allow small teams like this to be able to grow companies faster because they're able to essentially, 10x their bandwidth, right? Because you only have so much time in the day. I talked about it before. There's only so much that we can do, and to be able to eliminate, some of the mundane tasks from your list that just take time, right? Like tracking your metrics and building a spreadsheet off of that, or that's
researching a client. I mean, there's just
researching a client.
You get 30% of your day back, and in an 8-hour day, think about that. That's what you're getting 2 hours of your day back, 2.5 hours of your day back every day to either have a better quality of life or go get more business or whatever else you want to do with it, whatever you're into.
Yes, truly. You can focus on more high impact,
exactly.
More high impact activities rather than doing the mundane day-to-day stuff. And so I think in the future, or like looking towards the future, that's really where it's going to help small companies win, is they'll be able to scale it in a way that they weren't able to previously, because one person is only one person. And now you're given a tool that makes you essentially 2 people or 3 people or 5 people, depending on how, good you are at manipulating the tools,
Do you think it'll get to the point where like an AI or an AI agent will like be able to like replace a sales team and close a high ticket complex, deal like something you guys are doing?
I certainly think that even where it stands today, it can handle possibly all of your cold outbound at this point. I think that creating an SDR, like you can create an SDR AI agent.
What you're talking about, I mean, when you say cold outbound, and if you're talking about like the initial foot in the door to contract signed and invoice paid, if that's 100%, you're talking about the AI handling like maybe 5 or 10% of that initial outbound and, scaling that a little faster, right? But what I was asking is, AI is not going to take it all the way through the process and get a contract signed.
Currently I would say in our industry, just because there is so much variability in technology and it's, it's a very R&D industry, right? Like robotics is a very R&D industry. There's lots of moving targets. There's lots of different technologies that are being implemented. There's lots of different battery chemistries. There's lots of different, workplace, challenges and whatnot. So for it to be able to carry an entire deal over the finish line would be a huge lift. It would have to be a very refined AI. But
I personally don't think it's going to happen, or I mean, definitely not anytime soon. I was just curious on your take of it, and I guess that's where and obviously in some jobs AI is going to replace humans, but from a B2B acquisition, marketing, sales standpoint, AI is not going to take over more than maybe 10 or 20%, right? Even if it's really refined, it's going to open the doors. And then during the follow-up process, it's going to help automate some follow-up, add some additional value points. But nobody's going to sign a $100,000 or multi-million-dollar deal, multi-year deal. And correct me if I'm wrong in your case, but you're also selling to a committee of people. There's not one decision maker at that manufacturing company that's making that decision. There's 3 to 6 to 20 different people involved in that decision. Do you think not that AI can't help keep everything organized and learn about everybody in the decision making process and that type of stuff, but it's not going to manage relationships and close a complex deal like that, or not anytime soon. I think, for the most part, the job security is there. It's just now, how can
Yeah.
I utilize AI to outshine everybody else and outshine my competition, whether it's internal competition within a company or whether it's competition
Mhm.
with your actual competition in the space.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right, especially in the B2B world. I think it would it would be much easier for an AI agent to close a deal to a consumer with a one-off product, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're selling
Um,
$100 pair of shoes or something, or
yes,
something like that, then yeah, for sure, all day long. I mean, that's already happening.
100%.
But I think from the
Yeah,
B2B
100%.
space, we're kind of safe for right this second.
Yes, yeah. And you touched on it perfectly. I think a lot of these sales are by committee, right? You're not selling one to one. There's not one person who signs a contract. You're appealing to a panel of buyers. You're appealing to, mechanical engineers who need to be able to work and manipulate your product and know that you're going to be there to support them if they don't understand something about it. You're talking to the financial portion of it who want to know that, the money that they spend is going to be well worth spending. You're talking to senior leadership who need to see this as the vision for their company. The C-suite needs to understand, like, okay, when we implement this, this is taking our, technology to the next level. This is taking our automation to the next level and whatnot. So it's not just a one-off person who's making these purchases. And I think the human part of uh, being a human, right, is going to appeal to a committee way more, and be able to close those deals better because they can speak to individually where these people are coming from and understand individually where these people are coming from as well.
Absolutely. I do agree. Yes. The yeah. Well, I think we've covered everything at this point. It's been a
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, it's been a great
sure,
show. I really appreciate you giving us your time. Appreciate you giving us
sure.
the audience your time. It's it's very cool to learn about all these different businesses, these unsexy businesses, like I say, and what you're doing in the marketplace, the problem solving, taking very unique problems and building a whole business around it, and then
Mhm.
really helping in a lot of different ways. Any last minute remarks, comments, any advice for the fellow kind of B2B marketers, business owners out there?
Yeah, I think truly anybody out there who's working with a small team like I am, and who's working with a small company, understanding like that preparation is going to be your best friend when it comes to any marketing campaign and when it comes to accessing any um, audience that you're looking into. And so understanding preparation and organization are going to be your two keys to maximize your effectiveness in your position, and understanding what tools you can and can't use in order to prepare and organize yourself. I think that's kind of going to be what the difference maker is in the future. And yeah,
Great advice. Great
yeah,
advice. All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you listening to the episode. Don't forget to like or subscribe wherever you're at, listening or engaging with this on social media, YouTube. Don't forget to follow along. If you are in the space, if you have robotics, if you have autonomous vehicles, if you have anything that needs to be charged more efficiently, has downtime or anything else, remind me of the website, Isaiah.
oh, Wibotic.com,
Uh,
Wibotic.com.
Perfect. Don't forget to visit the site, reach out and see if it's a good connection, see if they can be a good fit and help you out. And stay tuned for another episode in a few days. And take care, everyone. Have a great
All
day.
right.